everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dialing In for our Line 6 Helix. This episode, I'm taking a look at an amp, actually believe it or not, that I haven't looked at before. It's amazing because I've done, I believe, don't quote me on it, but over 100 Dialing In videos. It's kind of crazy, but I was kind of scouring over the list of amps to see, and it's actually kind of funny because I look at an amp and I'm like, did I do that? And I go through my whole list of videos and, oh yeah, I use it. The funny thing is some of them I did as a dialing in as a sort of a generic amp tone. And some of the amps I've used as kind of more artist-specific tone. So some of them I'm duplicating, but I don't think I've ever used this one. This is going to be for the Line 6 original Fatality amp. I don't know what this amp is, what it was going after. I'm sure that information is out there somewhere. I didn't have time to really look into it too deeply. Judging by the name, I always assumed it was going to be a pretty heavy sounding amp for more metal tones, and I believe I was right after kind of diving in and playing around with it. What a pleasant surprise. What a nice amp. So if you want to hear the preset that I came up with in the mix, I have a performance video up now of one of my favorite metal songs from one of my favorite metal bands. I'm not a huge metal fan by any stretch. I'm a music fan, but I mean, I do like a lot of different metal stuff. But the band Testament and the song Electric Crown from their album The Ritual, I believe. I always liked that. I always loved Alex Skolnick's playing. And I figured that would be a fun one to do. So I did the whole song. I did it very quickly. I played that before. I think I did a cover of that guitar solo a couple of years ago or a year ago. I don't know exactly when it was. But I thought I would do the whole tune and really try to utilize this tone. So what you're hearing in that is I was able to find some stem mixes of that with no guitars. So all the guitars you're hearing in that, like all my videos when I do the performance videos, are from this preset, untouched in the mix, okay? Nothing other than just balancing volumes in the mix, okay? Nothing extra added. So you're going to have a rhythm. Actually, the rhythm and lead tone are the same. I used one preset for this. I changed guitars for the lead. I went with my Yamaha Pacifica 611 for the lead and my Revstar 620 for the rhythm tones, and just so that there was maybe a slight differentiation in the tone so they blend better in the mix. It's kind of a funny thing to do a mix when you're not allowed to touch anything after, because no tone is going to be perfect for any mix. Especially if you're, layering a lead over a rhythm, maybe you want to kind of EQ them different, but I don't do that. So it's always a tricky thing. So sometimes I'll switch guitars to kind of accomplish the same thing. Anyways, one thing I want to say too, a lot of folks, usually when I watch the views on these videos, the dialing in video gets way more views than the performance video. But there's also a lot of comments about the tone. And a lot of times I comment that the tone was kind of designed to work in the mix, or that was my thought process as I was making it. I always think that way because, I mean, yes, there's some players that just sit in their bedroom and play, and that's fine, that's wonderful. I love to do that too. But when I think in terms of tones, I'm thinking of the guy who's going to go play, or the guy or the girl who's going to go play live, and that has to mix it with another guitar player, drums, bass, vocals, or in the studio, the same thing, right? So a lot of folks comment on the rhythm, and a lot of times, or the preset, and a lot of times I even say, this preset doesn't really sound that wonderful out of the mix, but it sure works in the mix. This tone I actually like in both, out of the mix and in the mix. This I was really impressed with. So let's go. So please go check out the performance video to hear how this preset works in the mix. And if hopefully you're a Testament fan, you can watch that. I kind of sort of copied Alex Skolnick's leads throughout, but kind of, as always, put my own little twist on it. I hope you guys enjoy that. Let's go over to HX and take a look. So here we have a preset called Fatality. And as you'll notice, it's basically based around the common sort of template that I use. So let's start at the end. As always, the LA Studio comp, peak reduction of 5.5, gain of 5, mix is at 100%, nothing major there. The EQ block that I always have at the end, I did nothing EQ-wise on it, other than the low cut at 100 Hertz and the high cut at 12 kilohertz, so simple enough. Room verb, my standard little thing, room verb, decay at 5, mix at 30%. Again, a lot of folks might say, why do you put reverb on a metal tone, right? Maybe it's not something we want. It's more just to give a subtle kind of an effect that this, was actually recorded in a room. Direct recording as we do with modelers takes that aspect out of it, and it has no way of putting it in, right? When we have a microphone in front of an amp, it's going to pick up some sort of the room sound and reflections and whatnot. So a lot of folks ask, why don't I use the early reflections on the cab block? I have in the past. It's not my go-to thing. It's not my favorite thing to do. So I just use this room verb. The delay, I'll show you the settings. So that's on the wrong tab. It's turned off right now. This preset is set up in pedal board mode so that you can flip the delay on and off for the lead. So in the performance video, what you're hearing is the rhythm tone has no delay and the lead tones all have this delay turned on. So the note sync is set to a quarter note, and the tempo for this is set to 165 because that was the tempo roughly of the song I was playing. You feel free to tap tempo whatever you need to match the song you're doing, right? Feedback at 23%, mix of 30%, very, very typical settings for me. Where I did get fairly aggressive is on the low and high shelf. So all the frequencies below 650 hertz, I pulled back 3.5 dB. All the frequencies above 2 kilohertz, I boosted 10 dB. Now that might sound very extreme, but coming up to the cab that I used the 412 Uber T75, which I don't believe is the one that comes up stock with this, but it's a cab I really like. The ribbon mic, right? So again, this is why I went with a fairly heavy high shelf boost, because those ribbon mics are warm sounding. In metal, we don't necessarily want that warmth, but it always has something in the bottom end I like that I don't feel I get out of a dynamic mic. That's why even for metal, I end up going to a ribbon mic and then just compensating by putting a fair amount of EQ on it. And that's not an uncommon thing. You'll hear a lot of engineers who lean towards ribbon mics for guitars say. You know, they handle high-end EQ very nicely. So back to the cab, I went with the 412 Uber T75, 160 ribbon mic, pulled it back 6.5 inches to kind of control some of that bottom end. And what else? The Fatality settings. Drive set at 8.3, bass at 2. Mid at 6.5, treble at 7.8, presence at 7.9. Channel volume is up to 10 just because I was trying to get the volume up to be a good level on the Power Cab 212, which is one of the monitoring systems I use when I'm dialing these in. I also think I boosted the final output by 3 dB just to get that up in so it's into the yellow on the LED on the Power Cab. Master is at 4. Didn't touch the deeper functions, which is a sag at 2, hum at 5, bias at 6.2, bias X at 5. That's it. So let's do this. Let's turn off compressor at the end, the high and low cuts, the verb, and the shelf EQ, and hear what just this amp with these settings sounds like. And it sounds like this. So you can hear there's a little low mid muddiness, a fullness to it, and that's really probably coming from the fact that I'm using the ribbon mic. So let's just bring the compressor in at the end, hear what that does to the tone. I like that little squishiness it puts in there as always, right? We'll bring our high and low cuts in. Probably gonna be fairly subtle, but here's what it sounds like before that. We'll engage that. So even further, we lose some of that sizzle on top, which we need to put back in. The verb's gonna be very subtle, like I said. This is what it's gonna sound like with that on. Again, with it off. Hear it? Just gives it a bit of that room effect. Okay, so here's the probably the most important element, right? So, like I said, I cut all the frequencies below 650 hertz by 3.5 dB, and I boosted all frequencies above 2 kilohertz by 10 dB. So before and after. really opens it up. All those low mids are gone. There's a controlled low end now. Now some folks might say they want more lows than that, so they may come in and just pull this back up to 0. And if I wasn't using this in the mix, I might do that too. But the reason I pulled this back to -3 is because in the mix I wanted to keep room for the kick drum, lose some of that mud, leave room for the bass guitar. Sounds really huge through the power cab. I was really liking it. The high shelf though is really important. If we bring that back to 0, we really hear. We miss some of that cut and that sizzle we need, right? As we bring that back up to 10. Sounds great on the neck pickup. Now, if I just step on the delay pedal here, very subtle, just give it a little bit of depth. Take that off again. And there you have it. The Fatality preset. All right. So that'll be up on Custom Tone as you're viewing this. If you want to go grab that, give it a whirl, try it out, see how it sounds through your system with your guitar. There's some tweaks that can be made if you want a little more fullness or a little less cut. But I was very impressed with that amp model, sounded good. And go give the performance video, it's the full playthrough of Testament's song Electric Crown using nothing but this preset. Delay turned off on the rhythm guitars and delay turned on the lead guitars. That's it, nothing else touched in the mix. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back soon with some more content. Please like the video, share it if you don't mind, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate all the support I've been getting, guys, and I hope you're continuing to enjoy what I do. I'll be back soon with some more. Thanks again for tuning in. Ciao for now.